Well, that said, Caleb, we got Mark on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Have you found it difficult to get loans for multifamily?
Yeah, but there's always someone who will lend. Like we went to Bank of America and all these big banks, and they're like, nope, can't help you. We found a local bank, one bank out of everyone who would do it. And that was enough. All we needed was one bank. And every time we go for a deal, it's in a new space. So an institutional bank is looking at that and thinking, well, you don't have the experience. And they're not wrong. We don't have the technical experience with that property. We do have the experience managing new things and learning skill sets and deploying and having success. Maybe my most significant thought about that is find the right bank. Get creative. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep on hounding them.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. I'm very excited for today's show. It's another Ask the Expert episodes. We got two great people on the line with us. We're going to hear their stories today. We got Mark Davenport and Kalib Williams. And Mark, you're up first, so welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of, weave a tale and tell us how you went from where you came from to investing in apartments.
My partner, Phoebe, and I, we have our own kind of real estate development company, but we started about 5 years ago. My partner was working as an occupational therapist. I was working as a professional musician. We own a single family house in New Hampshire. And we kind of had this, life season situation that, sometimes happens where you realize what you're doing isn't a good fit, or like there's more out there, or, it's time for a big change. Didn't really feel like that much of a big change at the time. We didn't realize that it would kind of lead us down the path that we're on now. But we ended up finishing renovating the single family house we were in and selling it and buying a foreclosed duplex in the neighboring town. And we renovated that house. We did it mostly ourselves. We subbed out the plumbing and electrical, but the rest of that we did it ourselves. Loved it. Found there was just so much demand for affordable housing. Loved being a landlord. Loved not having a mortgage payment. The setup of that particular property was, and that was part of the play. The play was, do we really have to have W-2 jobs? Like, what are we doing here? We're spending the next 20, 30 years paying down a mortgage. And then, somehow we've managed to squeeze out $1 million in retirement savings so that we can just kind of eke out an existence. It just felt like, I don't know, man, like there's got to be more than this.
I mean, I look at that plan that everybody talks about, this is the way you should do it, and the conventional wisdom, it always makes me scratch my head. It's like, putting 5% on my paycheck away in a 401k is never going to get me $1 million, So that I think led me to the same pathway, same decisions.
Yeah, we did it kind of started actually, I guess, a little bit earlier. We're often like, we'll see situations and we'll be like, yeah, we like that. Let's take that, or let's change that. And other things we're like, let's leave that alone. We did the Dave Ramsey thing for a while. I'm not sure if you know who Dave Ramsey is. Kind of a guru type, and paid off a bunch of debt. And the next thing in his program was start saving for retirement and paying down your mortgage. And at that point we were like, wow, really? Like we were super focused on paying off our debt. And now we're just going to squirrel away $200, $300, $400 a month and hunker down for it just felt like there's just so much more out there. And it started small with a duplex. Didn't feel small at the time. That duplex felt about as big as the 12-story tower we bought last year. So like it's all relative. We were going from a single family house, and it felt super risky, super out there, super exciting, nerve-wracking, all of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Dave Ramsey. I think a lot of people feel the same thing, or I've heard a lot of people in the apartment industry say the same type of thing, where they get through there and it's better than most people have, but I think it's still tailored to the masses. It's the mass plan, the one size fits all for everybody thing. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that people should do exactly what you did and forge your own path and just say, hey, look, that's not quite maybe one size fits all, but it doesn't fit me. So here I go. So you got the single family home, flipped it duplex. Where'd you go from there? Pulled a HELOC against it. The duplex was worth a lot more after we'd done the work and placed a tenant upstairs. So did a 4-unit in New Hampshire. We moved down to Brooklyn, New York, sold both those New Hampshire properties, rolled them into a couple of 6 units, a 3-unit and a 2-unit. Developed those just like we developed the other ones. One of those was a bigger development in terms of converting 2 commercial spaces into residential apartments, which was an interesting process. So basically tied up that portfolio. And again, we're like, yeah, you know, there's more out there. There's more grind to do. There's a lot more opportunity. That's when we moved. Well, we moved a couple of years ago from Brooklyn, New York to Kansas City. One of the drivers for that move was seeing the commercial real estate market here and what you can get for your money, which just, it blew my mind. I mean, you can buy 100,000 square feet of performing real estate for the same price as a single family in Brooklyn. And we at that point when we were in Brooklyn, we knew that this business had become something that we would move to capitalize on in terms of growing to the next step. So moved to Kansas City, sold the New Hampshire portfolio off one property at a time, and invested in central Kansas. And that's where we're kind of at now, developing a couple of 3 kind of larger commercial properties.
Yeah. I think what you talked about is kind of nailing one of the demographics we're seeing in the U.S. You know, a lot of people, you know, wake up one day in New York City or Boston or something and realize, man, if I moved there, I could get twice as much, you know, real estate for my money, twice as much house for my money, and a lot of people are leaving the high cost of living, high density urban spaces for, you know, the Kansas Cities of the world, and for the, you know, Charlotte, North Carolinas, or, you know, the Greenville, South Carolinas, where Kalib's at. And that's one of the trends I think you keyed in on early and, you know, was able to take advantage of. So Kansas City now, and I've heard a lot of really good things about that market. One of the better Midwest markets right now. So let's take a little detour from your story for just a second. And I want to ask a question. You know, what's your motivation, or what is your big burning why for all of this?
Maybe quality of life. I'm not sure I have one thing. I mean, these days, the road kind of takes some twists and turns, and some motivations become stronger and some become weaker, and sometimes other motivations kind of pop up and like, you're now there as this significant motivator. For me now, kind of a bigger motivator is a desire to kind of have an impact on situations. We typically go for, you know, smaller cities of a population maybe under 100,000. Those are the properties we'll look at, and or at least properties in those cities. And you've got this downtown often in towns of that size, which is historic and not doing that great. You know, the suburban sprawl has happened. People have moved out. You've got your Chili's, you've got your McDonald's on the outskirts, and then on the inside, you've got all these beautiful, large historic buildings that are slowly being converted, but often vacant. And so we found a lot of opportunity there. And that kind of has become for me something of a major motivator to think, you know, you can get hold of one of these properties and you can do some development, and the impact in the town is outstanding, because you've done something that maybe no one else was able to do, and you've added a ton of value, and it works for everyone. It's a win-win situation. We do very well. Everyone does well. And
so I mean, a lot of people look at these, you know, sub $100,000 towns, and they say there's a lot of risk because of the lack of population. How do you choose where you do the developments?
It's all based on the property. We purchased 3, the properties we're working on at the moment, all in a city called Hutchinson, which is in central Kansas, about 45 minutes outside of Wichita. And it's a city of population 40,000, hasn't really changed much population-wise in the last 10 or 15 years. But yeah, no, I get that. I get the concern, because you're like, well, this is tenuous. The population is stagnant. The economy in it, in the town, from an outside perspective, is nothing to write home about. What you found though is in a population, in a town of population 40,000 people, most of those a significant amount of them are go-getters. You know, it's kind of interesting because you kind of lump the whole town into a certain category of like, oh, it's economic stagnation. I mean, we find often when we go for these properties, there are lots of people already doing lots of things to make the town better. And you know, there's opportunity. Before we were in Hutchinson, we were in a town of about 12 or 13,000 in New Hampshire called Somersworth, and we did 2 or 3 of our properties there. They were smaller, 6 units, 3 units, 2 units, and it was the same. It's the same situation, but then the price point matches that. But the upside is terrific. I mean, our company has grown explosively over the past 5 years, and I attribute a lot of that to investing in these types of markets.
Yeah, you know, and it's one of those things where if you can mitigate the risks, and incidentally, I live in a town. You know, the whole metro area is probably 100,000. I think last census, Idaho Falls came in at like 70,000, right? So where I live fits your model as far as population size, and it's got a downtown that's, you know, I think 5 years ago, the first time that I started spending time here, you know, the downtown was kind of like, oh, you know, and in the last 5 years, you know, there's new restaurants, there's a lot of things that have been renovated, there's, you know, buildings that are now under construction and being you know, redeveloped and whatnot. And, you know, I think you're definitely onto something. You know, obviously there's a little more risk with the smaller towns, but, you know, you're looking at the upside and making that risk decision. You know, hey, here's my potential upside if I do this, even though it's a small town. You know, you got it covered. So yeah, just ask the question, because a lot of people will shy away from the smaller cities without good reason. But, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the smaller cities. You just have to be able to, you know, pick and choose and understand the local dynamics to do well. It sounds like you guys are.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's been fun so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So, quick question. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about, you know, what one of these projects. Maybe pick one of the most recent ones you've done, or your favorite one, and tell us a little more details on, you know, what you guys did to redevelop it and reposition it.
We're working on it at the moment. We purchased it about 6 months ago. It's a 4-story, long, thin, historic building that was built in 1919, I believe. It's like 25 feet wide and 162 feet long. It's called the Hoke Building, and we're redeveloping it and turning it into a boutique hotel. Okay. So we've just started our construction period for it, and it's our first hotel, so it's kind of an adventure. Yeah, nice. So yeah, it's a long and skinny building. What challenges have you guys had so far on that? We're going for state and federal historic tax credits, which is to do a lot of, you know, historic preservation. So it's so interesting thinking about how to fit, you know, what you want for a hotel, the suites and everything, into what's already there, and use as much of what's already there as we can. And that part is really a lot of fun, because you're going into these rooms that, you know, they have horsehair plaster and peeling paint, and then the beautiful original trim work, you know, the wide, the transoms, beautiful doors. So the idea that you can keep so much of that and then make these kind of selective upgrades, like, you know, skim coating the walls, new paint, refinishing original hardwood floors, and stunning. Yeah. So it's like threading the needle between preserving and taking what we can that's already there, that's awesome, but then in other things, it's like, well, it's other parts, it's beat to hell, so you just need to do new things, like new electrical and new plumbing. And new windows. I mean, the windows are boarded up and cracked. I mean, it's the whole thing. And but then I was talking earlier about community impact. Like in the city of Hutchinson, there's no hotel in downtown, and there's no upscale hotel in the whole city. So the fact that that we're taking this downtown property and putting a boutique hotel in there is fulfilling this significant need that they have as a city. And so it's an impact thing, kind of an impact move. Yeah. And there's a lot of things. We have a building that was built in the 1920s. You know, it's a 40-unit apartment, and there's a lot of things about the construction back then. And I know you mentioned the hardwood floors and whatnot, but there's a lot of really nice things about that historic type of construction that you definitely want to keep. I love what you're doing. I think that's amazing. Trying to preserve the historical aspect, but update it as well. I know electrical is probably going to be, you know, one of your bigger headaches, unless somebody else has updated it recently. You know, there've been a lot of, you know, electrical revolutions in the last, I don't know, 102 years. So hopefully somebody else has gone through a lot of the pain and effort
upgrading electrical for you guys already. But if not, it's just another line item on the expense sheet. But
yeah,
there you go.
Right. I was looking at your portfolio. I noticed in like a 16-unit property, a brick building.
Yep.
Is that a historic one as well?
That one was built in the 30s.
Okay.
That one is in Spartanburg, South Carolina. There's one about a mile and a half away from it that's a 40 unit. That was built before the 16 units. And we actually picked both those up at the same time from the same owner. But yeah, one of them was built late 20s. One of them was built, I think 36, if the public records are accurate. But yeah, both of them are, beautiful brick exteriors. You get inside and, still has like, I don't know if it's original or not, but, the hallways are, 10 feet wide and super tall and just a beautiful building inside and out. But yeah, and we try to preserve as much as we can with it, so leave the floors alone, just refinish them. And I can't say they're original, but I can say they've been there for a long time, so but yeah, beautiful buildings. So but yeah, that's those have been fun projects, but beautiful buildings. And yeah, we had same issues on the outside. We wrapped all the windows and did a lot of exterior work on that on the 40 unit building. The 16 unit building was in a little better condition when we bought it, but still had to do some exterior cleaning up, so to speak. But yeah, anyway, one more question for you, and then we'll turn to Kalib for a second. So what's next for you?
Still working on that one. That will be probably the Hoke Hotel will be a year and a half renovation. Then we'll put it in service and we'll kind of enjoy what happens next. We're always looking for new projects. Is kind of the long and short of it. So kind of scouring the landscape across the Midwest. Probably not too much interested in the coasts because of how the prices go crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty interested in expansion and continuing kind of to scale what we do. Nice.
Well, good luck on that one. I think there's a lot of Midwestern markets that most people overlook because they're looking at the coast and they're looking at some of the larger cities. But definitely a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah.
That said, we got Kalib Williams here as well. So Kalib, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you on. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina. Went to private Catholic school my whole life. And I've always loved to cook. So on a daily basis, I'm a chef. I work downtown Greenville. And I got into investing about 3 years ago. Started with stocks, bonds, equities, and the more research and books I read, the easier it seemed to make real estate a better choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people hit the same thing. They start looking at real estate. I made some small investments into rental properties and some small investments in the stock market, and the returns were a lot higher on the real estate. And
exactly
decided to go all in on that one. So you're Greenville, South Carolina. You're working during the day as a chef. What type of stuff are you looking for right now?
Currently, right now in this market, I have about 2 flips. So in the beginning, I wasn't really interested in flips, and I had a long conversation with my agent, and she kind of not convinced me, but made me realize that I can multiply my equity a lot faster, and that would allow me to play bigger in wanting to develop multifamily. So currently, right now, we're doing a couple flips, but I would like to build new construction multifamily in this next upcoming year or two.
Okay, nice. All in the Greenville area, or are you looking elsewhere?
I like Greenville, but I also like a lot of the submarkets. So Spartanburg, Easley, Anderson, and Lawrence and Fountain Inn, kind of staying in that upstate circle. Yeah. But yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson MSA area. And we've got a count in my head, 6 properties, right along that area, some right next to, Clemson University, a couple more Spartanburg, as I mentioned, and
it's a great area
just outside of Greenville. Yeah, really, really great area. So, in a way, you're fortunate to live there. We got to commute to get there, but
it's okay.
Yeah, it's a great area. Great area, though.
A lot of people are moving here too. A lot of people.
Yeah, my wife was born and raised in Columbia, which is why we like South Carolina. Is
Okay.
was a part that we knew as well. But so what's your big burning why? What's your motivation to do this?
My big burning why, it kind of evolves as I get older.
Mm-hmm.
When I was
Yeah.
younger, it was more not necessarily selfish, but I thought of myself a lot because I always wanted to travel the world and cook in these nice restaurants. But as I get older, it's becoming more about helping other people and taking care of my family. Because, when you have a couple $1,000,000 or even $1 billion, that's a lot. You can feed a lot
Yeah.
of people. You can house a lot of things. You can create infrastructure in towns that need it. And
Absolutely.
taking care of people, I like to take care.
Yeah. I don't know why I brought this came up. I just saw a recent video with Mike Tyson. I'm sure a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people remember him, heavyweight champion of the world. He looked at his belts. He's with a reporter. He looked at all of his belts and he said, these don't mean anything. These don't mean anything. I focus so much of my life on getting these things, but
Mm-hmm.
now 20 years later, they don't mean anything. And he said, what matters to me are my kids. Are my kids happy? Is my
Mm-hmm.
family happy? Are we happy? But I think you hit the nail on the head. And Mark mentioned the same thing. I mean, he said his why has evolved over time too, and definitely mine has as well. But yeah, I think impact is something that a lot of people look for. Especially as they get older, is more, less me and more, hey, how can I make an impact? But
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so. Cool. Hey, next time I'm in Greenville, I'll have to, find whatever restaurant you're working at and go pay you a visit.
Oh, you should definitely come by. It's a nice restaurant downtown. We cook the food right in front of you.
What's
All
it called?
right.
What's the name of the restaurant?
It's called Camp. It's a new restaurant concept under a restaurant group, Table 301. It's
Okay.
right slap in the middle of downtown off of Broad Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So downtown Greenville is beautiful. And I actually used to have, my virtual background used to be the Greenville, just the Reedy River from one of the bridges that crosses over.
Yeah, I
used to have
noticed
that
it.
all the time. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful, beautiful downtown area. And a really good example of a downtown that's been, renovated recently, so, if you were there 20, 30 years ago, I'm sure you were, and you look at it now, it's night and day different.
It's night and day.
Wow. It's beautiful too. So
It's changing every week, every month. There's something
yeah.
being built.
Yeah. So anyway, well, that said, Kalib, we got Mark on the line. What do you want to ask him?
I would ask, what made you come from London to the United States? And currently, right now, where do you see yourself long term in the next 10 to 15 years? Like, what are your goals for building your company?
I moved to the US because my partner Phoebe, like we got married. We just wanted to be together. For some reason, it was never an option that we'd be in the UK. I guess I just wanted to be in. I much prefer to be in the States. It's much more entrepreneurial here. I think generally there's a lot more opportunity to establish yourself and build something of significance. It's not that it doesn't happen in the UK, but I think there's more opportunity here. Like next 10 or 15 years, probably mostly keep on doing what we're doing. It's interesting how the different phases change, from early on, I was swinging a hammer myself, renovating myself, framing, doing sheetrock, laying floors, finish work, trim work, really anything I could technically do, I would do, because that was how we got our value. I didn't have to pay someone else to do it.
It makes sense. How did you learn?
Yeah. Well, and I still do that now. I'm not doing it with the screw gun, but I'm just learning by buying a 6-story tower and being like, well, I've never done this before. It's a good price. Looks like a great deal. Let's go. And then it's still the same mechanics. It's not a screw gun and nails and cut and trim board anymore, but it's still the same process of, oh, this is new. I think I like the idea of doing this. I think this would be a good thing. Let's just do it.
Yep, makes sense. Go for it.
What I love about that is that's the way I learned too. I can read about it 1,000 times. I think the longest delay in me getting started was trying to take that first step. But once I did, I started realizing that I learned by doing. I learned by doing exactly what you said, Mark. Is hey, I think this is going to be a great project. The numbers work. Let's figure it out. And I think a lot of people will stop short of that and try to have all the answers before moving forward, but realistically, you're never going to have all the answers. So love it.
Kalib, what's your involvement in your flips?
In the flips currently right now, I'm just it's just me, and I have a lender and I have a GC, and he has a friend that helps him. So I kind of put the deal together, and I'm per se managing the GC, talking with him, the process and permitting process, and what kind of lights, doors, all of that, foundation edits, roof. Not per se doing anything myself, since during the day I work in a restaurant, which is what I love to do, but almost being the overseer. I was blessed to have a lender who would fund the whole thing, 100% purchase and renovation. So nice. I'm kind of just managing the project along and learning, because it's my first.
It's a huge deal. I mean, I know it's not physically doing the work, but what you're talking about is a huge component of the work is managing it and staying on top of that. So yeah, how do you find that? Is that a process you're enjoying?
I do enjoy it, because it took me a long time to get here. And I enjoy it. I learn something every day from my lender and from my general contractor. And my lender's a really good guy. I've known him for maybe about 10 years. And I went to school with his kids. So we have a nice, genuine relationship, mutual trust, which is really good, in any business.
Yeah. I got to say, even if you break even in the deal, what you learn from taking on the project is going to, catapult you, years ahead of where you'd be otherwise, So
exactly,
definitely keep on pushing. And sounds like you took a private money loan from, a friend's dad, which is, creative. And I love how you got that, worked that out and got it all, taken care of. So good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what other questions you got, Kalib?
I do have one question. I heard him mention tax credits. The process for the historic tax credit, what all do they allow you to change? And do you have any involvement with the low income tax credit, which is something I do a lot of research on and I would like to utilize in the future?
They'll allow you to change it if it's kind of code related, or you obviously need to, because the windows are no longer there. Generally, you have to have a really good reason. So that kind of a good thing to kind of think about as you're thinking about kind of doing it. I mean, this is our first time we've done the historic tax credit, so I can talk to you a little bit about it. But we also haven't finished the project. We're like, in the throes of it here.
Yeah, I got you.
But so I mean, it's intense. There's a lot of detail, a lot of determining things before you even do anything, a lot of planning, a lot of legwork, and then at the end of the day, hopefully we'll see how it works out. So with low income, I've never done that before. I know of a guy who did it in the building we invest in the town, but I actually haven't done low income housing tax credits before, so can't really speak to that.
Okay.
Mark, I got a follow-on question. What's the approval process like to get the changes approved? So if you go in, you see something you have to change or update, is that bureaucratic nightmare, or is it pretty easy?
What a great question. I think it depends on how much you've prepared. Because it's like, I think we work with a consultant who kind of leads us through the process. And I think my understanding of it is, as long as you are thorough in your scope and just say what you're going to do and do it and tell them, then they'll approve it and it'll be cool. But the minute you start to go, do this amendment and everything starts to change and things like that, it gets a little bit more tricky. But did I answer your question?
Yeah, we're good. All right, Kalib, you got anything else?
I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day, what do you enjoy most about the investing and doing a lot of things different than traditional investors? And how do you find is the best way that you can educate people and, bring them towards in your company and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're trying to do well by people's money. What do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy this a lot, so I enjoy talking with a lot of people. It's funny. I'm somewhat introverted, but you get people on Zoom, and the introvert in me doesn't really have any problems. But I also enjoy the hunt. I enjoy talking with owners. I enjoy looking at properties and before we started recording, that there's actually a 60 unit just down the street from where I live that I'm looking at. And I was talking with the owner yesterday, and I was just going over, this is what I would do. So, walking the property, looking around, and then thinking, okay, there's a lot of problems here, and a lot of these problems are easy fixes, So I really much enjoy the problem solving aspect, and that's really what makes this apartment investing thing work, is you find a property that has a problem, you solve the problem, and everybody wins. You create a win-win scenario by solving a problem, right? So that's something that I really enjoy. And then as far as your other question about, taking on other people's money and making sure it works, we just dot our I's, cross our T's, sharpen our pencil a lot, and make sure we've doubled and triple checked the numbers, and make sure we've left adequate room in there for things to happen. And
would you say you're a cautious underwriter?
We try to be. Yes, I think if you're too cautious, you never get a deal. But we make sure that we have enough wiggle room that we can adjust as things go. I think we're more cautious with the things we can't control, and we try to be as precise as possible in the things we can.
Okay, I got you. Have you found it difficult to get loans for multifamily, either new construction or existing construction?
We haven't. Mark, have you had any issues with getting the loans?
Yeah, but there's always someone who will lend.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's always somebody.
Just keep looking.
Yeah, for us, every time we go for a loan, it's into new space. It's not something that we have a track record with. Like when we got a loan for a duplex, we'd never done a duplex before. Like we went to Bank of America and all these big banks, and they're like, nope, can't help you. We found a local bank, one bank out of everyone who would do it. And that was enough. All we needed was one bank. And every time we go for a deal, it's in a new space. So an institutional bank is looking at that and thinking, well, you don't have the experience. And they're not wrong. We don't have the technical experience with that property. We do have the experience managing new things and learning skill sets and deploying and having success. So, I guess maybe my most significant thought about that is find the right bank.
That's a good point.
Just keep on going. Just keep on looking. Find a local bank that shares local vision, or get creative. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep on hounding them.
We've actually used 2 local banks out of Greenville, and they are, what you find with local banks is local banks are very interested in the local area and improving the local area. So they'll take a little more chance on, someone like you or me or Mark who's going to improve the local area than one of the big box lenders will. So I think the smaller the market, the more important the local banks become.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we've got 9 properties. We have 4 loans from local banks, and all 4 of those banks are based out of Greenville, and we have 5 loans from some of the national lenders. So
that's awesome. What banks in Greenville do you use?
Greenville County Credit Union, and one that used to be called Crestcom. They just got bought out by a larger bank, but Crestcom's headquarters was just right downtown in Greenville too.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't remember. Is that?
Now Kalib knows who to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll go knocking on their door.
Walk down to Greenville and say, Brian sent me. Hey, Brian sent me. He's got a couple loans with you guys, but
hopefully you'll get a kickback.
Yeah, probably not, because banks don't do kickbacks. But
I'm not sure that's legal, but it sounds like fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the local banks are, a good place to start. Especially like Mark said, if you don't have a whole lot of experience, but you got a good idea and a lot of hustle, some of the local banks will take a little more interest in you. And that's what I'm doing. Here in Idaho Falls, where I'm also in a small town, like I said, right around 100,000 when you include the outlying areas. And one of the national banks gave me a quote on the 60 unit at like 50% LTV was their max. And the local bank said, we'll go up to 80, and so, you're looking at the difference, and, looking at the local banks, term sheet versus the national bank's term sheet, it's a no-brainer.
For some deals, would you suggest a local bank rather than like, say, big agency debt, FHA, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae?
I'd say shop around.
Shop around.
Yeah. I'd also say make sure your debt term matches your business plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so don't get into a long-term debt with a high prepayment penalty if you're going to flip an apartment. You know, if you're going to hold for 2 or 3 years, get debt that matches your business plan.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's really the key. So
that's great.
Yeah. So cool. Anything else for us, Kalib? Any big burning questions you got left to answer?
That's about it for me. I'm still kind of surreal being on this show. I listen to the podcast all the time.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, man. So, well, hope we were able to help you, and definitely, you know, reach out if you got any issues. You know, like I said, Greenville is one of the areas that we keep our fingers on the pulse, and an area we know pretty well. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that said, thanks to both of you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time, and you know, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.